Well, finally, we're here. Took a few minutes because I was very busy. I am very busy. It is Friday after all. So on Fridays, yeah, thank you guys. On Fridays, we do tend to be busier. So let's get started because we got stuff to do. I got stuff to do today. I have so many things to do that, I just don't have the time today to do anything. So, yeah, whatever. It's one of those days. I am just having so much stuff happening. So much is happening. Anyway, let us get started. And I just want to say welcome back to Andersen Acres because it's Friday and it is time to go live. Obviously, that's what we're doing right now. And we go live on Fridays to talk about different things on the farm. Sometimes there goes the turkey. Sometimes we are cooking on the farm. Sometimes we are hanging out. So, we're doing a bunch of different things all of the time. So, what are we doing this week? Well, this week we are talking about turkeys. Sorry about that. We are talking about turkeys. It's the third Friday of the month. And on the third Friday of the month, we talk about things like the animals. We do an animal spotlight. And right now, our turkey is on his way into the shed. But our animal spotlight is all about spotlighting an animal, usually a specific breed, so a type of animal and a specific breed of that animal, and talking about them a little bit and their place on a farm. Sometimes it's the place they have on our farm. I'll also expand that to the place that animal could have on other farms because no two farms are quite the same. So I do like to talk about other uses you might have for that animal on your farm. This is always one of my favorite live streams because I get to focus on one animal here on the farm and share more about them, how we care for them, what makes them unique, and the fun personality quirks that come with having that animal on the farm. And I also get to talk about ways you could use that animal that we don't necessarily do, but you could. So today the spotlight is on turkeys, specifically on turkeys. Okay? Not just any turkeys. That's a rooster, not a turkey, but not just any turkey. Okay? We are going to be talking specifically about the Blue-Slate turkey, which just so happens to be the breed of our very own big boy, Blue. And apparently we've all decided, you guys haven't been crowing for 2 hours. Now's the time. Right now, everyone's going, not everyone, but some of them are going into the shed, causing problems. So if you've been following the farm for a while, you've probably seen Blue strutting his stuff. He's gorgeous, he's funny, he's got a personality that's impossible to ignore, and we adore him. So let's talk turkeys, specifically the Blue-Slate. We'll probably talk about other breeds of turkey along the way on different live streams, but today we're specifically talking about Blue and his breed. So turkeys have been a part of farm life for centuries, okay? Long time. Also, it is lightly raining. If the rain gets harder, we will suddenly just move into the gazebo. No big deal. But turkeys have been a part of farm life for centuries. Most people, when they hear the word turkey, at least in North America, think Thanksgiving dinner. But turkeys are more than that, okay? Yes, they're an animal that is bred for meat a lot of the time, but there's more to a turkey than just what goes on your dinner table. They're intelligent, curious, and very social birds. On a farm or a homestead, they can play a lot of different roles. Some folks like to raise them for meat, some for eggs, some like me enjoy them as companions who add beauty and character to the barnyard. And yes, we are going to get Blue some girlfriends and eventually hatch his eggs. But right now, he's just our bosom friend. We love Blue. So there are two big categories of turkeys out there. Two. The first is commercial breeds, like the broad-breasted white, which these guys are bred to grow pretty quick and produce a lot of meat. They're broad-breasted because they have those nice big turkey breasts. Okay, so that is what a lot of people think of when they think turkey on the table for Thanksgiving dinner. Those birds can't even breed naturally. They're entirely dependent on human intervention. So if you're going to get broad-breasted whites, know that, well, it's not impossible. It is highly unlikely they're just going to breed as they exist in your backyard. They grow too big, too fast. It's just not really going to happen. It's not impossible, but it's highly unlikely. Blue's heading this way. We'll see if he goes past me into the background. I can't control Blue. You'll either see Blue in the background or you won't see Blue in the background. It depends. Okay. So, beyond the commercial breeds, the second group of turkeys is called the heritage breeds. That's where the Blue-Slate comes in. Heritage breeds are hardy, they're sustainable, and they can raise their own babies generation after generation. So yes, they can breed in your backyard, but not only that, they can raise their own babies. You don't have to if you don't want to. I love raising baby turkeys. My primary, he's going down the path, which I think is pretty funny. It's just, he's behind the barrel. There he is. He's going to head down the path, which I think is pretty funny. There's chickens down the path that I can actually see them. I can see the chickens down that way. So it's obvious that he's going to go join them. He's a good bird. But yeah, heritage breeds can raise their own babies, and it's not a big deal for them. They live longer, they're more self-sufficient, and they keep that old-fashioned farm diversity alive. However, they do not have as much meat on them. Okay, that's important to note, because the broad-breasted whites, for example, they are huge. They're so huge that eventually they can't really walk very well. It's like meat breed chickens. Well, they can't really walk very well at some point because they're so big. That doesn't happen with your heritage breeds, with Blue over there. Okay, it doesn't happen with breeds like him. However, you get a little less meat. So the meat might be the meat is higher quality, the meat is more ethically raised, but there will be less of it. It's just the way it is. So why did I choose the Blue-Slate turkey for Andersen Acres? Because originally we chose the Ridley Bronze. So for one thing, the Blue-Slate is absolutely gorgeous. Okay, if you were to come out of the bush and you could take a look at him, he's just stunning. His feathers are really soft. They're this silvery gray with a bluish tint. And when the sunlight hits him just right, he shimmers. Like he glitters in the sunlight. He's a gorgeous bird, and we love him. He is a showstopper. But it's not just about looks. Okay, Blue-Slates are also really known for their personalities. They're calmer, friendlier, and funnier than some of the other breeds. We have also had Ridley Bronze. We had Ridley Bronze last year here on the farm. And don't get me wrong, the bronzes are beautiful birds too. They are really gorgeous looking birds, and I'm not ruling out having them again. They have that classic Thanksgiving turkey look. They're really pretty, okay? They have those deep, dark brown feathers and all the shimmering tones, and they're beautiful birds. But in our experience, the Ridleys just didn't have the same friendly disposition as the Blue-Slates. The Blue-Slates are interactive. They're the kind of turkeys you enjoy being around, and that makes a big difference when you're caring for them every day. Thank you, Jabba. So, for example, Blue really likes my son, Rowan. When Rowan is out here tending his rabbits, Blue is popping around with them, hanging out, going for walks with them. He'll follow Rowan all the way out back to where the potatoes and that are planted, or he'll follow Rowan around no matter what Rowan's doing. He loves Rowan. So he really has bonded to some of his people. And that makes a big difference in how they behave on the farm. So we just liked the personality of the Blue-Slate better. So we do intend to add more Blue-Slate to our farm, and we might add more Ridley Bronze in time, but we really enjoy the Blue-Slate. We just do. Now, from a homesteading perspective, Blue-Slates really do shine. They're hardy and adaptable and do well in a variety of conditions. They're also really excellent foragers, which means they'll happily wander around, and Blue does, but they will wander around your yard eating bugs and weeds and seeds and grass. It helps keep the farm balanced and reduces your feed cost because he loves to hang out. He's down the path. But he loves to hang out. He loves to wander around the yard. He is so good at just existing in the yard. He doesn't require any special care. He's hardy. He does well in our winters, and we get 40 below in the winters. So the heritage breeds, and specifically the Blue-Slate, are something that just really suits our farm. We wouldn't ever want to get something that was a little more exotic because it's 40 below here in the winter. It's 40 below here in the winter. It's still cold. So the fact that the Blue-Slates, which I've fallen in love with, are a heritage breed makes them even more valuable because unlike the commercial breeds, they can breed naturally, which means you can keep like a small flock and hatch your own babies each year. And that's exactly what we do here and what we plan to keep doing. Blue is eventually going to have a bunch of girlfriends so that I'm not going to have to order eggs, but Blue will have his own girlfriends and we will raise little Blue-Slate babies. They'll pop around the yard. We'll sell some of them, but primarily we're going to keep a heck of a lot because the turkeys have so much personality, specifically heritage breed turkeys, and for us specifically the Blue-Slate. But they have so much bubbling personality that they're definitely worth having on your homestead. It really is a sustainable way to keep the breed going while still enjoying everything they bring to the farm if you're breeding them and allowing them to thrive on your farm. And he does so well even in our 40 below winters. So again, we have to be kind of selective about what breeds we pick because it's 40 below here. And not now it's not, but in the winter it is. And when it's going to be that cold, you really need to focus on breeds that will thrive in your climate. And for us, the Blue-Slate do thrive in our climate. He didn't have a single problem. He was wandering around most days. 40 below, everyone stays inside, including the turkey. But most days he was wandering around the farm, even in the coldest weather. So he really enjoys just being a turkey on the farm. And I can see him through the trees. He is back there. I'm not going to go try to get him or anything, but he's out there. So I can see him. Hopefully he'll wander back out and we can take another look at him because he's a beautiful bird. Now, a common question that people do ask all the time is whether Blue-Slates can be raised for meat. I've had a lot of people see him, think he's gorgeous, but can that breed be used for meat? And the answer is, of course they can. Heritage turkeys like Blue-Slates are known for their rich, flavorful meat. It is an even better flavor than the commercially raised birds. Okay, they're smaller than the giant commercial birds, but many people prefer them for taste alone. It is important to note that pound for pound, they are more expensive. A true heritage breed, even if you buy it like processed from a butcher, they're going to run you more than a commercially raised bird. They do cost more to raise, pound for pound. Okay, so you'll probably pay about the same amount for a commercially raised turkey versus a heritage breed, processed and ready to pick up, but the commercially raised bird will be heavier. So pound for pound, yes, it's more expensive to raise heritage birds. Where are we all going? Where are we going? Doing bird stuff? Why are you tripping, Blue? He's coming slowly out of the bush, but he's tripping on sticks. Okay. Here at Andersen Acres, though, Blue is not destined for the dinner table. He is very much a part of our farm family. He's here to strut around and show off, and he is doing just that behind me. So he is doing just that behind me, showing off, being pretty. He's a good-looking bird. But he is here to strut around and show off and eventually pass on his genetics to the next generation. He is not destined for the dinner table. He is just too gorgeous and too much of a part of the family for that. He will live his best turkey life right here, so don't worry. If you're one of the people who has fallen in love with Blue, there he goes. If you're one of the people who has fallen in love with Blue over the course of the last couple of years, yeah, he's here to stay. While some folks raise Blue-Slates for meat, for us, Blue is a companion, a breeder, and honestly, a farm character we couldn't imagine being without. It's not that we don't eat turkey. Of course we do. And yes, we are going to raise our own Blue-Slates that we're going to take to the abattoir for processing. Blue will never be one of them. Blue will always, till his dying day, he will always be here on the farm. If he suddenly stopped showing up for weeks on end, you can assume he passed from natural causes, because he is a part of farm life that we are not willing to give up. So let's talk some fun turkey facts, because turkeys are full of surprises. Did you know they can recognize faces and voices? They can. Blue knows me, and he reacts differently to someone like Rowan, who he loves, versus my brother Eric, who he finds a little bit annoying, versus strangers that he absolutely does not like. So he is very different with different people. Male turkeys can change the color of their heads depending on their mood. They can shift from a deep red that is, it's not necessarily anger, it's just heightened emotion. They can be white, right? They can have kind of almost a white head. That means they're not really up to too much. They're pretty calm. They can have a slight blue tinge. And for Blue, if his head is kind of blue, it means he's still chill, but he's getting a little miffed. Bright red means he has like arousal, not necessarily for breeding or anything like that. It just means heightened emotion. Despite their size, turkeys can fly. Yeah, heritage turkeys can fly. Maybe not long distances, but they can definitely flap up into trees and over a fence if they want to, specifically heritage turkeys. Commercially bred tend to be a little bit too heavy to pull off that particular trick, but the heritage breeds, Blue can get pretty high up in the trees if he wants to. They also have a whole vocabulary of sounds beyond the classic gobble. They purr, they cluck, they yelp, and once you've lived with turkeys for a while, you start to realize what mood they're in by the sounds they're making outside your window. Okay, Blue yelps outside the window because he wants us to come out with snacks. He finds snacks important, so he'll yelp outside the window because, you know, who doesn't want a good cookie? Everybody wants a cookie. And of course, turkeys have really big personalities. Blue, for instance, really likes to strut around like he owns the place, and he kind of does, let's be fair. He likes to fan out his tail and drop his wings, and he parades around like he's on display. He makes me laugh because sometimes he'll do it even when nobody's watching. He likes to show off, even if he's showing off for absolutely no one. So, Blue himself. Let's talk about Blue himself. He is a gorgeous bird, and when you see him up close, which we haven't done, well, we've sort of when he was going past. Where is he right now? Over there. All right, we might see him again as he turns around and comes back. We'll see. But he really has a beautiful set of feathers. He has beautiful coloring. The way he struts, the way his tail feathers are fanned, wings slightly lowered, that's classic turkey behavior when he's walking around like that. He's showing off when he's doing that. So he was doing that a few minutes ago behind us. He was showing off for the ladies that he doesn't have. Look, he's not always that smart, but he is a good bird, okay? He likes to be the star of the show, so he 100% will sit around and flap his wings and strut for you just because he wants someone to pay attention. He's a good bird. Turkeys like Blue add a lot of character to a farm. They're not just backyard animals, they're real individuals with quirks and personalities. And honestly, it's not hard to smile when you watch them. They're beautiful animals and they make you chuckle. So, now that you've met Blue and heard a little bit about turkeys in general, and a bit about why we like Blue-Slate turkeys more than anyone else, let's move on to the Q&A portion of today's Animal Spotlight. I have a selection of questions from previous weeks that I tried. Well, a lot of them are on topic, some of them are not. But it depends. I picked the questions I liked. If you have a question, you can drop it in a comment on this video. If you're watching it on the replay, drop it in. Hi. You can drop it as a comment in this video or another video, or you can find me on Facebook and send me some questions there and ask me to answer them in a live stream. I know most of you watch this in the replay, which is excellent. So feel free to reach out with your questions and I'll try to include them next week. So let us get into some of these questions. And if you happen to be live in the chat any week at all, you can drop a question in the chat and hopefully I'll see it and get to it. But let's start with our pre-done questions that people submitted in advance. Question 1. Are blue slate turkeys rare? They're definitely less common than your typical commercial turkeys that you see everywhere, but they're not impossible to find. I wouldn't call them rare. They're just not as common as like a bronze or your commercial birds. Lots of small farms and homesteaders raise these guys. So while they're special, they're not out of reach. They're not super rare. They're not super hard to find. How long do blue slate turkeys live? It depends. There he goes. I'm just going to turn this around so we can watch the birds go this way. But how long do they live? 6 to 10 years, depending on the line, I would guess. Some lines live longer than others. And yes, there's a bunch of chickens going that way too. I don't know. Doing a thing, okay? They're all doing a thing, and Blue is in the midst there. But yeah, so 6 to 10 years is a good ballpark. It's a pretty big commitment compared to commercial birds. So if you are getting them and don't intend to process them in the fall, no, you're going to have them for several years. Okay, commercial birds only live for a few months, but these guys live for quite a long time. They're beautiful birds. We absolutely adore them. Question 3, can blue slate turkeys fly? Yes. Not long distances, okay, but they can get some airtime, and you might find them perched up high in a tree. So the tree there above the shed, he has been perched pretty high up in that tree, and he's going to disappear. That's okay. But he's been perched up pretty high some days. He likes to get up there, and he can definitely fly over a 6-foot, 8-foot fence if he wanted to, no problem. The first time you see a big bird lift off like that, it is a little surprising, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility that you're going to see your guy fly. Okay, it happens quite a bit. Do turkeys lay eggs like chickens? Yes. Turkeys' eggs, they're quite a bit larger than the chicken eggs, and they're often speckled, and they are really, really rich. So most people hatch them because they don't lay a ton of eggs. So because they don't lay a ton, they're more valuable for hatching baby turkeys, right? But if you want to eat them, you certainly can. They're perfectly edible. How many eggs does a turkey lay in a year? One hen, well, between 50 and 70 usually. Some turkeys will lay up to 100. That's unusual. But it's not like chickens, where chickens will give you an egg every day, which is great, right? Chickens will give you an egg every day. That's fantastic. But turkeys are not like chickens, okay? It's still a good amount, and especially if you're going to be hatching babies, it's a good amount because it'll give you, between 50 and 100 chicks a year if you have a good hatch rate. But it's not like chickens. So you're probably not going to have enough turkey eggs to feed your family unless you have a lot of birds. Hi, I just moved. I don't have snacks. I didn't bring out any snacks. Yes, a couple of roosters and a couple of hens in that group. Yeah, pretty birds. Yeah, you guys are pretty. I love y'all. You're very nice birds. Question 7 was, how much space do turkeys need? More than chickens, okay? You would be surprised at how much space they actually end up needing. 10 to 15 square feet per bird inside, plus lots of outdoor room to keep them happy. They need to be able to wander around. They need to be happy and healthy. And the way to maintain that is to make sure they can get out and about. So free ranging is best. Not everyone can free range them. If you can't, make sure your pens are huge. Okay, turkeys need the space. Do turkeys get along with chickens? Ours do. Most of the time, they'll be fine with chickens. If they're raised together from young, they'll usually share space just fine. It's like we don't have a problem with our ducks with our chickens, as long as your male to female ratio is not crazy, and as long as everyone is raised together, they tend to do fine together. What do blue slate turkeys eat? Generally a good quality poultry feed, but they also like to forage like crazy. So if you are able to free range your birds, they will eat bugs, and they will eat seeds, and they will eat grass, and they will eat lots of different things. So definitely consider free ranging if you have that ability. I now have a bunch of young chickens like directly behind me, which is so much fun. There's a lot of you over here. Why are you guys all over here? I don't have any snacks. Yeah, okay. They're just being weird. So here's another question. Do turkeys drown in the rain? So we're going to keep hanging out with these turkeys and seeing what they're doing. But these birds, not all turkeys. The turkey is behind the shed. But let's talk about, do turkeys drown in the rain? The answer is no. Okay? That's a myth. Adult turkeys do fine in the rain. Babies can get chilled if they get wet, but adult turkeys can handle the rain just fine. Okay? Don't worry about turkeys out in the rain. Give them shelter. Absolutely give them shelter so they have somewhere to get out of the rain. But they're fine. They're legitimately fine. Okay? As long as they can get out of the rain, and our birds have shelter all over the place. They have the woods, they have the sheds, they have the barn, they have the garage. They have plenty of shelter from the rain if they don't want to be out in the rain. But the rain is not going to hurt your birds unless it's an actual downpour, and then they'll take shelter. They're not that stupid. Are turkeys noisy? Yes and no. They're not consistent noisemakers. Blue gobbles when he hears something unusual or he wants attention, and he yelps when he wants us to come out of the house with snacks. But generally, they're quieter than ducks. Well, everything's quieter than ducks. Ducks are noisy. But generally, they're quieter than the ducks, quieter than the chickens. They do quite well, sound-wise. So, yeah, I mean, they can be loud, but generally, I don't find them obnoxiously loud. Do turkeys make good pets? Heritage turkeys especially can. I would not try to turn a commercial turkey into a pet. It probably won't go well. Okay? But heritage turkeys bond with their people, they'll follow you around, and they have a ton of personality. So yeah, I do recommend a turkey as a pet if you're allowed turkeys where you are. Double check. Double check before you get a pet turkey that you are allowed to have poultry. They are poultry. They see if you have rules about having turkeys and chickens in your area. Generally, if you're allowed chickens, you're allowed turkeys, but that is not universal. How big do blue slate turkeys get? Blue is he's about 30 pounds. So the toms can reach between 25 and 35 pounds usually. Hens are usually under 20 pounds because they're smaller. But Blue's a hefty guy. He's about 28, 30 pounds. He's a big guy. Can turkeys defend themselves against predators? No. I hear this a few times, like, well, I can get turkeys as guard animals instead of dogs. No. Turkeys are prey animals. They need protection from predators. Are they bigger than your chickens, so some of the critters won't go after them? Yeah, sure, because they're bigger. But a coyote won't care. A coyote's going to take your turkey and really not care. Okay, so they're not guard animals. They need fencing, housing, livestock guardian dogs. They need something to keep them safe. Are blue slates good mothers? Yes. Most of the heritage breeds are okay mothers. Most of them are fine. Blue slate in particular, yeah, the hens are devoted mothers. They'll sit faithfully on their eggs and they'll protect their babies once they hatch. So yeah, they're decent mothers. What predators are turkeys most at risk from? Larger ones. So again, it depends on your area. Around here, we have to worry about foxes, coyotes, and we have bald eagles that are big enough to take down a turkey. We also have horned owls, and they're big enough to take down a turkey. So it depends. If you don't have a bird of prey that's big enough to take down a turkey, then you probably don't have to worry about a turkey with the birds of prey. But you probably do have to worry about a coyote or a bear. We have bears. So anything big enough. So I would say smaller animals are probably not as big a danger, but larger ones, yeah. Yeah, larger ones are definitely a danger to turkeys. Next question was, what predators are turkey? Oh no, I just did that one. We just did what predators are turkeys most at risk from. Can turkeys be kept in the same coop as chickens or ducks? They can. Know that the more types of animals you have in one enclosure, the more cleaning you have to do. You have to do things like sanitation. Turkeys are more sensitive to disease than chickens or ducks. And they can end up with something called blackhead disease if kept with chickens that are carriers. So you might end up having to separate. If you notice your turkeys are constantly getting sick and dying, the culprit might be they're being housed with your chickens and they shouldn't be. So definitely think about separating them if you're having a problem. Now, we haven't had a problem. Our flock is clean. They are fine together. You're going to have to do more cleaning. If you have multiple species in one coop, it's going to be automatically messier. So be prepared to clean more. How do you tell a tom from a hen? Well, toms are larger with bigger snoods, wattles, and they actually strut. Once you see a turkey strut, you'll know what it means. They puff up, they fan their tail feathers, they drop their wings. That's a boy thing. They also have, if you look at the center of their chest, Blue has it because he's a boy. The boys have kind of these wiry hairs that come out of their chest. If those wiry hairs are specific and they stick out forward in an adult bird, but in a baby, you really have to look for them. But those wiry hairs are indicative of a male. Girls don't have them. Okay, girls don't have those. So because the girls don't have them, if you have a bird with the wiry beard, the wiry chest hairs kind of thing, then it's definitely a boy. Do turkeys get sick often? Blue has never gotten sick. We have never had a sick turkey. Generally, if you care for them well, care for them properly, then they're probably going to be fine. They're like a lot of animals. If they are properly housed and they have, their house has good ventilation, they're probably okay. They do tend to get respiratory illnesses if they are kept in damp or closed off conditions. So if you put them in a closed coop and there's not a lot of air circulation, they can get sick. So just make sure there's lots of ventilation. It's one of the reasons we talk about ventilation so much here on the channel. We talk about making sure all your animal buildings have lots of ventilation, and that's why. Can Blue-Slate turkeys be shown at fairs? Yes, absolutely. They are a recognized breed by the APA, American Poultry Association, and their unique coloring makes them real standouts. They're beautiful birds. So yes, if you're interested in showing, most of the heritage breeds can be shown. So Blue-Slates are absolutely able to be shown. No big deal. If you are going to get into showing, get the best adult birds you can afford. You don't really know what the babies are going to turn into. Even if their parents are show birds and they're absolutely gorgeous, you do run the risk, okay? You do run the risk of the babies not being show quality. A show quality adult does not necessarily mean show quality babies, okay? So if you are going to get into showing, best adults you can afford. So here's some questions that are not necessarily turkey related. We're getting into the chickens as well. What's your favorite chicken breed? Silkies. I have a soft spot, and Seabrights. I have a soft spot for the little guys. Okay, and the Silkies are funny little birds with a lot of personality. The Seabrights are standoffish. There's Blue. But the Silkies are cute and cuddly. He's coming around the backside of the shed there. But I like Silkies and I like Seabrights. I like the little guys. Do chickens and turkeys eat the same food? Mostly. You can generally get away with it for a while. The babies need a much higher protein content so the baby turkeys need more protein than baby chicks. Okay? So if all you have are chicks, you're probably just getting a regular chick starter. If you have baby turkeys, get a game bird or a turkey starter. They need the higher protein. Do chickens get along with turkeys? Usually if they're raised together, they're fine. Right now, Blue is in the shed eating rabbit food. Mister. Excuse. I'm going to make him get out of you are capable of eating an entire bag of that food by yourself. Get out of there. Get out. Blue, excuse me. Come on. Thank you. Weirdo. He's a big bird. I don't lift him. He's too heavy to lift. He is too heavy to lift. What can I say? He's a big guy. He is a big guy. Okay? He's a big bird. He's a nice bird. I like him. But he is a big guy. So, yeah, they typically get along just fine. Raise them together, they'll be fine. Next question. What's the biggest difference between raising chickens and turkeys? The biggest difference, turkeys need more space as adults, and their babies are more delicate. Their babies are also stupid. Turkey poults, if you're going to raise turkey poults, raise them with chickens, raise them with chicks, because turkey poults are idiots. I swear, adult turkeys are fairly smart. Their babies are stupid. They won't eat or drink unless another bird shows them how. So if you are hatching and raising your own little ones and you don't want to put them out with mama, you're probably going to want to raise them with chicks so the chicks can show them how to eat. Chicks figure out how to eat even without me pushing their faces into the food and water. Turkey poults need to be shown by another bird. So turkey babies are harder to deal with when they're little because they're so delicate, and it's not unusual to lose an entire clutch of babies. Chickens are more hardy in that department, but once they're adults, seriously, turkeys are hardy as heck. So turkeys are not generally a big deal once they're adults, but as babies, yeah, they are delicate and stupid. Can turkeys catch chicken diseases? Yes. Blackhead disease is the big one. So you need good biosecurity, at least when it comes to introducing new birds into your flock. Chickens can carry blackhead and generally are unaffected by it, but the turkeys can die from it. So generally, there's a reason we don't really add a bunch of adult birds to our flock of adult chickens. We don't want them bringing in blackhead and killing blue. So we generally only add like hatch eggs and sometimes buy babies. We don't, under any circumstances, bring adults in. Do turkeys and ducks get along? Sure. They just usually ignore each other. They share the space peacefully. He's over there and there's... Don't lay eggs in there. Sorry, there's a duck on the other side in the wood pile thinking that she's going to lay an egg. She's an idiot. There's stuff happening, okay? But, yeah, generally, turkeys and ducks get along just fine together. They'll mostly ignore each other. Do ducks need a pond? Not a full pond, but they do need to be able to dip their heads into water. So they need to be able to submerge their entire head, their bill, their eyes, their nose. They have to be able to get their entire head underwater. So they don't need a full pond. They'd love it if you had a pond for them, but they don't need it. Okay, just make sure they can dunk their whole head. It's important. Are ducks messier than turkeys? Yes. Ducks and water equal mud. Turkeys are fairly tidy. Yes, you still have to clean up after them. But turkeys are actually, between ducks, chickens, and turkeys are actually cleaner. He's going back in the shed. Oh my God. You guys are nuts. But yeah, ducks are way messier. Turkeys are fairly clean. Yeah, you still have to sweep out your turkey house and stuff. But if you, like, I use a lot of sand, it makes cleanup really easy. So it's easy to clean up after a turkey. Cleaning up after ducks is a little bit of a nightmare. I love my ducks. They're a nightmare to clean up after. Which are friendlier, ducks or turkeys? That's really going to depend. You're going to have people who argue both ways. Here, it's the turkey. Okay? Blue is so friendly. But Dolly comes and hangs out with me all the time. So it's a toss-up, really. Like, I like them both. They're friendly. But Blue is one of the friendliest birds on the farm, to be fair. Can turkeys swim like ducks? No. Okay? No, they'll float a little bit, but they're not built for swimming. If your turkey falls into the pool, for example, and he can't get out, if you don't get him out, he's going to drown. Okay? If you don't get him out, he will drown. Not a good look. So no. Do the dogs bother the turkeys? No. Our livestock guardian dogs protect them just like they do the rest of the flock. And Whiskey, our golden doodle, he's never been a problem with the birds. So no, our dogs are fine with them. I would recommend, if you want even a livestock guardian dog, if you want them to be good with turkeys, raise them around them, because birds are not naturally something livestock guardian dogs always look after. So it's definitely worth seeing if you can raise your livestock guardians with the turkeys, or at least around them. Do goats and turkeys get along? Yeah, goats and turkeys don't really pay that much attention to each other. They mostly just ignore each other. So they'll coexist peacefully unless you have a real jerk of a goat who's just out to torment everyone. Otherwise, you're probably fine. Like, goats and turkeys generally coexist very well. Do turkeys chase cats? Generally, turkeys ignore cats. Sometimes they'll posture a little bit, but like a lot of the other animals, they ignore each other most of the time. So if a cat, like Autumn, can be really annoying when she's out here. So if a cat is really pestering a turkey, then the turkey might put the run on them. But for the most part, they just ignore each other. Do turkeys get along with rabbits? They don't really interact. Like, the rabbits are not that interested. And yes, all these turkeys get along with questions came from the same person. But I thought I'd answer them anyway. The turkey and the rabbits don't really interact. Even when the rabbits are out around the turkey, they don't really interact a ton. Not a ton. A little bit, not a ton. Are turkeys smarter than chickens? Yes. Yes. Turkeys are definitely smarter than chickens. You recognize faces, they're more socially aware. Chickens are not as stupid as people pretend they are. Turkeys are smarter. How many turkeys should you start with? It depends on how many other birds you have. Can you have a single turkey? If you have other birds for him to be around, sure. Remember, they're flock animals. They need a flock. So can you have one turkey without any other birds of any kind? No. He will get lonely and pine. However, you could have 2, 3 turkeys in a flock of a bunch of chickens, and they would be fine. Right? So they're really social birds and don't do well alone. But what alone means, they don't necessarily need another turkey. They do need another bird to be their friend. And not necessarily waterfowl. Like, they get along fine with geese and with ducks. But in general, I would say that turkeys would rather ignore waterfowl than socialize with them. So if you only have one turkey and you can't find another turkey to put with them, you might want to get chickens, because they will interact with the chickens. They're not really into the waterfowl. Do you bake with turkey eggs? I generally do not. First of all, Blue's a boy. He doesn't lay eggs. But when we had the Ridleys and they were laying their eggs, I was hatching them to sell the babies, because turkey eggs are worth a lot. Now, they are fantastic in cakes and other baking because they're so rich. But they are worth too much for me to put them in my baking. So I use the duck eggs for baking. Turkey eggs I hatch. Raining a little harder. If it starts to really rain, we'll go into the gazebo. But yeah, generally I would hatch the turkey eggs unless you don't have a boy. Obviously, if you don't have a boy, they won't be fertile. You might as well put them in the cakes then. But generally, they're just worth too much to use in baking. If you have fertile turkey eggs, you're probably putting them in your incubator. What's the funniest thing Blue has ever done? Just the other day, he spent like 2 hours in front of the window because he saw his reflection and he was flirting with his own reflection. It had me laughing. Okay. He was convinced it was another turkey. It wasn't, it was him. But he spent a couple hours flirting with himself. It was funny. Do turkeys really gobble at? Yeah, they do. They do. Blue will gobble if there's something out of place, right? So if he hears dogs barking that are not his dogs, if there's a vehicle that's louder than he's used to, car horns, things like that. Or even if somebody's shouting, he doesn't really like shouting. So gobble, gobble, gobble. Yeah, they gobble. They have a real gobble. It's funny. What advice would you give to someone thinking of getting their first turkeys? If you're getting turkeys for the very first time, do your homework, okay? Pick your breed. It's okay to change your mind like we did. We started with Ridley Bronze, decided we liked the Blue-Slates better. So it's okay to change your mind, but try to pick a breed that you think you're going to enjoy. I would definitely stick with a heritage breed because they live longer, unless you are absolutely intending to process them for meat within that first summer. You probably want to go with a heritage breed. So go with your heritage breeds. See what you can see when it comes to um, the types of breeds are available in your area. Check it out. See what's available in your area. If you've never had turkeys before, I wouldn't recommend spending a lot of money on shipping and hatching eggs or anything like that. I would recommend finding something local, seeing what's available, and driving to pick up some eggs or some babies. If you're not great with eggs or babies, get an adult pair, but bear in mind that they may not have been well socialized. A lot of people don't really socialize their turkeys, and that's a shame. But it is also true that a lot of people simply do not socialize their birds. So I'm just going to move the camera where we can see Blue better, because that's who we're talking about. But yeah, so I would definitely consider looking locally. If you've never had turkeys before, you don't necessarily want to be in a position. Hi, buddy. You don't necessarily want to be in a position where, oh, now we're leaving because I'm following you. He likes to skip. But yes, I know. But yeah, just don't invest a ton of money until you're sure you're going to enjoy turkeys. Okay? Just make sure you're liking turkeys. Make sure you like turkeys before you invest a bunch of money in turkeys. Seriously. That is going to be about it. I'm just looking at the time. I have to go. I know that I should do it longer on Fridays, but I don't have time. I'm very busy. I have stuff to do. My brother's coming over tonight, and I don't have time for that either, but it is what it is. Hi, guys. But it is what it is. So we're going to end the Q&A here and wrap up. That is going to be it for today's session of Animal Spotlight. Thank you so much for submitting all your wonderful questions. I like being able to share what I've learned about the animals over the years of caring for them. And I like talking about life here on the farm. So if I get to your question today, leave it in the comments or give it to me on Facebook, and I will strive to get to it next week or the week after. I do tend to only pick between 30 and 40 questions. Otherwise, we're going to be here forever. There's quite a lot of questions, but keep them coming. I do enjoy the questions. I like answering them, and I like knowing that people are curious about hobby farms and how they function and how much fun they are, because they are fun. Okay? They're absolutely good fun. I love them, and if you're interested in hobby farming, start with something small, right? Enjoy it. See what else you want to add. But that's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. I hope you enjoyed learning about turkeys, especially the Blue-Slate, and getting to know Blue a little bit better. Would you ever consider raising a turkey yourself? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. And thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me here today. We'll see you tomorrow.